So, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. If you're joining us on the Friday nights on the Azurish Live Twitch.tv channel, thanks so much for tuning in. Obviously, it's hugely appreciated. If you can take part in the chat and get involved, that would be awesome. And don't forget to click that follow button if you could. That would be absolutely fantastic. Equally, if you're watching this on catch-up on the YouTube channel, please do like and subscribe and click that little bell notification so you'll get notified when we get more content up onto the channel. That would be absolutely fantastic. Okay, so my next guest this week is a principal technologist. He's an MVP with Microsoft. He's an AWS community builder. He's the co-founder of the AVD UK Community Use Group, and he's also a co-founder of the awesome Personal Safety App Busby, as well as being a blogger, a vlogger, a public speaker, and a huge community leader. So thrilled to welcome my next guest on In Conversation With as Mr. Kirk Ryan. Hiya, Kirk. How you doing, buddy? Nice to see you.
Hey, Johnny, I need to get you to introduce me more often. I like that.
No, absolutely. I mean, do you know what? When I was writing notes, it was like, looking through what you've done, I know some of the great things you've been up to across the community over the last, year or so since I've been kind of a bit more prevalent. But yeah, when you read back and see what people are up to, wow, you're a man with very little time, I can imagine.
I don't know where I put in.
I think it's the same, isn't it? For everybody that you speak to that does some awesome things in the community, it's always the same, isn't it? It's just you look back, I guess, and wonder how you manage your time. But obviously, it's brilliant. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's fantastic. I know we've been kind of speaking a bit on Twitter over the last few months or so, and we've been watching all the stuff that you've been up to. Thanks so much for joining me on an episode of this. Before we get stuck in, I know we've got some really interesting areas, particularly around some of the cool things that you're involved with at the moment. But before we get stuck into all that, for those that don't know you, I don't know if you want to give yourself a little bit of an intro, let us know what you're up to at the moment, and then we'll kick off from there, if that's all right, Kirk.
Yeah, sure. So big welcome to everyone watching. Thanks for having me, Johnny. Basically, my name's Kirk Ryan. I do a lot of stuff in the cloud communities as a whole. I've spent the last sort of 2 years up until last December entirely dedicated to Azure. Before that, I was multi-cloud. So I did a lot around AWS and Azure then. And then since December, I've gone back to multi-cloud again. So I actually do things across and build things across all three clouds, including GCP as well, which is great to be able to just have that knowledge and dip between the three and pick whatever's best for the task that I'm trying to do at the time. And I'm CTO of a startup called Busby that is the personal safety thing that we're talking about. So that definitely keeps me busy as well as working on a lot of architecture and reviews for NetApp as well. So lots of things that I do there. But primarily the main thing I've focused on has always been community. I think the community's been great. I learned so much from there. The people that have mentored me, the things I see, the light bulbs that get switched on just from a meeting and off you go. And yeah, it's something that I think is just very, very powerful. So to be on shows like this and to give back and share experiences and hopefully somewhere switch a light bulb on for someone else and think, oh, what a cracking idea. Can I go try that out? Then yeah, really keen to share those experiences and help out.
No, absolutely. I think, just before we hit record on this show, it's one of those things where, people that are watching this video or, you may be watching it live and you're involved in the chat, which is great. You look, I'll type now. No, this is pre-recorded. But, if you're watching this, sometimes it's a case of, right, you might be watching it because you know the people on there or, you might be following my shenanigans around, whatever it may be. But the point of these videos, like you say, Kirk, more often than not is switching that light bulb on for people. And I think, the first area I think is pretty cool to look into. So, I mean, working in the industry, working in tech, as a technical architect myself, you're of a, in a similar vein, multi-cloud technical architect, that kind of vein. It's one of those things, and I think we like I say, we quickly spoke about it before we hit record, is that sometimes we're so focused on, sort of helping our customers. We work for companies, we help our customers, solutionize whatever it is, whatever those problems are, those issues that business is facing. We help them solutionize using today the cloud architecture and the features and technology that we've got at our disposal almost. when we look to kind of do that for ourselves, funny things can happen. And I guess that's probably the first area it's probably worth dipping into. I really want to get to the community bit. Maybe we'll speak a little bit about the community stuff a little bit later, Kirk. But Busby, I've seen some of your fantastic posts about Busby. Obviously, from a personal safety point of view, I've looked into it. I've not downloaded it yet. I think I might be downloading it because I can see you've got a free version of the app. So it's talk us through it. I mean, the whole concept of developing your own solution is just, I guess, it's every architect's dream, probably, I would have thought, maybe. I don't know. Talk us through how did you get there and how did it come about, Kirk?
I think, like you say, though, being an architect and working on so many solutions, it's brilliant because you learn very quickly how to build things and probably more importantly, how not to build things as well. Yeah. You see the successful projects, but you also see your fair share of the ones that had challenges or, I'd say to anyone watching, especially if you're in there, don't be scared of making mistakes because you will make mistakes. There's things with the platform that might not necessarily work the way you believe they work, all sorts of things. But what's great is taking that knowledge and applying it to a personal project. And Busby started really because one of my founders and good friends, a guy called Barry Green, we both started our IT careers together. And he's an avid cyclist. He's always out doing stuff, putting us to shame because he's older than us, but he's fitter than us. He's always been fitter. So, but he unfortunately he was out and riding, and a van just drove into him, knocked him clean off. He doesn't remember much about it at all. It was very serious at the time. A few broken ribs, broken bones here and there. The bike was in several pieces. But fortunately for him, he wasn't like a newspaper article where it was, hit and run, or the things that we fear the most when, anyone that we know is out doing what they love, keeping fit. So I actually, when I found out what was going on, I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Is everything all right? I slept on it that night and I thought, I've got all this knowledge. I've built technical IoT pipelines for oil and gas, for vehicle manufacturers, for all this sort of stuff. And I thought, can I use my knowledge to better protect individuals when they're outdoors doing outdoor activities? Can I get help to them faster? Can I automatically detect incidents in real time? And after one sleep, I think I was down Maplin when that was still around. The next day, buying the hardware, soldering the Arduinos and stuff, and my ESPs, and learning how to code C# and things that I'd never thought I wanted to do. And that kind of leads me to a trend later that I'll mention about programming as an architect. But within a week, I'd had an MVP. I was like, right, here's a sensor you can put on the back of your head. It will detect if you have a serious incident or collision, connects to your phone, and I think this will save lives. So there's the idea. I proved it can work technically. Let's now go build something around it and see where this goes. I think that's the interesting part then is it's a lot more than everyone has great ideas. And I think what my advice to everyone is a great idea is a sound foundation, but then build a good team around you as well, because you're going to need more than one person. You're going to need people that can sell, people that can develop properly, can support the product and all that sort of thing. So the journey's really been building those bits around it as well. But we just closed funding actually. So we just took in significant investment, and we announced that we also just our first major customer is Deliveroo. So we're protecting all 175,000 riders that are out there giving us our food when we're hungry. So
it's fantastic, and I think I read that not too long ago when I think you landed that with Deliveroo, and I thought, wow, that truly is. You've taken it from, like you say, you're in Maplins, you're buying these components, and I think I've spoken to several guests on this show around IoT. I've followed that little dream, I think, myself over the last 8-9 months, learning and trying to tinker and play, and I think that the benefit, what has your benefit been? We'll talk more about Busby now. I think we'll flick over and have a look at the website to see where you've got to, because it truly is phenomenal at the moment where you're going with that. But I think when you roll that back to that first night's sleep where you say you woke up the following morning, you had that seed of an idea, you're in Maplin, you were buying some kits, and you were literally on your desk, kind of, I can picture it now because I do it quite regular myself. You're soldering components together. How vital do you think that part of the journey is, to somebody looking, because that's like mad scientist, inventor kind of territory that you see on the telly, yeah? what's your take on it, Kirk? In those senses, should everybody be looking down those lines? I mean, what did it mean for you to be able to do that?
I come from a history of inventors, so I think it's always been in my blood. But for me, I think it's something that there's no barrier to entry these days, right? To start a company maybe 10, 15 years ago, you needed to have 100 grand in your back pocket or something like that just to create an MVP in that. But you look at what communities have put out there, the huge amplification of open source technology that's out there, the fact that people like Microsoft and AWS have off-the-shelf SDKs that you can just use, and just the maturity of even just the coding solutions that are out there now. I mean, don't even get me started on Copilot. That's just going to change the world. But yeah, you look at these things. I think the barrier to entry is a lot lower, because I think even just 10 years ago, if I wanted to do something like this, I would have had to buy, a server of some sort, a SAN that can run a MongoDB for 24/7, 5 nines, and that sort of thing. Whereas these days, most people can approach someone like an Azure or an AWS or even a GCP and say, I think I've got an idea. Can I have some startup credits, please? And more often than not, they go, yeah, here's $1,000 a month. Or in our case back then, it was, here's $100,000. We think it's a great idea. Go and build it on our platform. And we were like, wow, okay. So we haven't had to, that's deferred something, means taking the risk out from a personal perspective. And all you're investing then is time, knowledge, and trying to keep it as lean as possible. I'm a huge advocate of the lean startup methodology. Go prove it. Go get your first customer and do it as leanly and as quickly as possible to prove out you do have someone that will pay for this. Sure. And I think you see a lot of open source projects that are great, but people aren't prepared to pay for them. And I think, a lot of creators there are like, well, why is no one paying for it? And I think there's that struggle with open source at the minute of people are sacrificing a lot of time, a lot of effort and stuff, and they should be rewarded as well. It's not it become very difficult to see 200 GitHub issues come in for a product that's is a passionate product to yours, and then people are beating you up for giving you spare time to try and maintain it. So I think we'll also see a bit of a readdress of the balance to a lot of these as well. And GitHub sponsors, for example, that was brilliant. Seeing people actually being able to leave their day jobs to do what they're passionate about. I think that's massive.
No, absolutely. I think, all of the things that you've just spoken about there I think sometimes, maybe as architects, sometimes we forget that over the years of doing the job, you pick up lots of different knowledge and lots of different disciplines in the tech industry. And then when you kind of speak about that end-to-end joined up solution, right the way from, buying that component in Maplins, right the way through to a polished product with your first customer potentially, you probably covered 25, 30 at least different disciplines that arguably you could spend a lifetime mastering. And for me, with guests like yourself, Kirk, it's always about how do you convey and how do you get into doing that, and how do you start trying to meander your way through all of these disciplines and join the dots. I mean, have you got any thoughts about that? From not everybody wants to have a soldering iron on their desk, undoubtedly, but maybe for the likes of you and me, we find it enjoyable. It's intriguing. It's fun. Does that part play a big part in actually getting that MVP, that minimum viable product, up and running and to a point?
Yeah, to a point it does, but then also it depends on your products, right? Because yours might be a service product that doesn't need hardware. So I think the number one thing is think of what really bugs you, or your greatest fears, or what you're scared of happening. So mine at the time was not knowing that someone that's close to me is injured.
Yeah,
sure.
I
want to be the first to know they need help. So are they getting help? Is someone on the way? That was my problem. So I'd say, as an architect, and you'll probably see this yourself, right, where you do work on a lot of stuff, but you're not necessarily hugely passionate about the project. It's the next bit of work that's come in.
Absolutely.
And that's not to say you're not going to give it 100%, but it comes in. It's someone else's project. For me, where it started to make sense, and where I thought, wow, it made me more credible as an architect, was to take something and go, right, okay, I've got a bit of hardware. I've coded the logic for that. That's going to connect to IoT. So IoT, then I had to think about security, rules, scalability. What happens when I first get my first million users? Are the costs going to be viable? How do I ensure connectivity and in poor connectivity areas and things like that? What do I do with the data then? How do I make sure it's secure? What about GDPR? And you get to go through a whole process. And even before all of that, there were things as an architect I was never exposed to, like, for example, code management. I'd never had to manage code before, checking it into branches, making, collaborating
Sure.
with potentially other people. So it gave me really good insights to, as an architect, your stakeholders, I would say, have probably changed in the last 5 years. I don't truly believe there's anything like it. There's a storage architect in the cloud. There are certainly specialists, but I don't talk to storage teams anymore. I don't talk to like that. There's definitely an emphasis on knowing more around it. So how IoT can plug into a service bus of some sort, or some SQS queues or something like that. You know how that then can go to serverless technology and event-driven architecture as a whole. You then know that, okay, event-driven architecture, where are the limitations, what my costs going to be, how can I not have cold starts? And it's been brilliant. I'd say to anyone doing it, just start with a small project that could be as simple as, I want to count the press ups I've done in this day and compare to a mate. Or just something that you think, right, that's going to give, I can give an hour a day. Don't overdo it. A lot of people start a project and never finish it because you put your own deadlines and everything, you'll fail basically. So I'd say just be kind to yourself, pick something that you're interested in, and go roll with it.
And you learn as you go. It's like an iterative process, I guess, you've been through. I mean, well, let's see what it's all about then. I mean, do you want to talk us through Busby and show us what obviously you've described where you came from and how it all started. Let us know a little bit about Busby then, if you don't mind, Kirk. Shall we? Shall I click over to your desktop?
That'd be great. Yes, please. So Busby, don't ask me about the name because I still don't really know how we ended up with that. But basically, you can download that straight onto any iOS or Android device, and within seconds, it will turn it into a real-time incident detector. So if you have a fall or crash or anything when you're out, that's what Busby does. So if you know anyone that's doing outdoor activities, cycling, running, snowboarding, on scooters, any of that, then Busby is for them. What you've got here, if it lets me scroll down, scroll down, where's my little thing? Basically, you can see it's available on the App Store and Google there. You can see some of the partners there, so Bird Scooters, Deliveroo, Tia, Stewart Delivery and stuff. Once you put it on, it starts monitoring the sensors in the phone. So like a lot of those IoT kits you can buy, they'll generally have like an accelerometer, magnometer, and compass, those sort of things in there. And with those you can create an algorithm, a fusion algorithm, to say, has something happened? If we detect an incident, and this is really smart, because at first it started as an algorithm that I designed and tested with a university, and we had a lot of work on it, and that made us unique. But then you can start adding things like machine learning to it, which develops the algorithm just tremendously, because there's only so far humans can think, or rather, I think, well, we can think unlimited, but there's only so much time we have to think in a day.
Sure.
Whereas you unleash something like machine learning and say, okay, here's my algorithm, what do you think of that? And it tries like 1 billion different algorithms per second and then gives you the best one back. That's where machine learning is like, okay, it makes sense. And it was actually this project that made machine learning make sense to me entirely. If you have an incident, then basically it will do some smart checks and stuff. It does the machine learning enhanced checks as well. Currently boasts an accuracy of 99.99996% across all global accidents. So it's very high. I actually truly believe this is the most accurate incident detection in the world. And it's taken 7 years to develop this.
Wow.
I'd say the other thing as well is, I remember when I was getting started, one of the very first investors said to me, so it takes 5 years to make an overnight success. And I laughed at him. He was right. Then if it detects an incident, Ash, are you okay? You're given some time to respond, because you may have legitimately had an accident, but you're okay. You've just got a grazed leg. Your pride's more wounded than your body.
Sure.
And you can say, right, I'm okay. I don't really need a response right now. But should the worst happen, you're unresponsive, you're down a ditch, you're unable to respond for whatever reason, you're in shock, that timer will elapse and it will send your location, your accurate location, directly to your loved ones. If you're a corporate, like any of these, for example, then they can also receive notifications, so their operations teams can very quickly respond to any instance where their riders might be down or anything like that as well. from the alerting perspective there, so we have the exact location sent. So the accuracy is usually between 1 and 3 meters, more than enough to ensure that you get help to you quickly. We also partner with someone called What Three Words, which they divide the world into little 3 by 3 meter squares and give every single one some funky names that basically tell you where it is. Partnerships is a good tip for me. Don't try and boil the ocean. Try and look if someone solved some of the problems beforehand, because you don't need to reinvent everything. You've only got so much time as a founder to focus on stuff. So focus on the high value stuff. Then there's other things there. So it went from that. We added a flare feature, which basically says, listen, as a community, if I've got a puncture and anybody using Busby is nearby, I can say, hey, listen, has anyone got a spare inner tube? And someone might come and help me out. So that was community safety. I'm in trouble. Can someone help me out? That sort of stuff. So that's the concept behind that, and that's where the concept of firing a flare because you need help came from.
Yeah.
Group Safe's about mountain biking. So that's been a good one where I've been doing a bit more mountain biking these days, and you don't necessarily look behind you and don't notice someone's fallen off or gone into a ditch until you're at the bottom.
Okay.
This tells you very quickly, if someone's down, you better stop and go get them, especially if they've hit a tree. Okay. So
is that, obviously taking when a certain rider goes far apart from a group of users all running the app, then I presume something like that.
Yeah. So you can set it as well, depending on your activity. So you might set it at 50 meters, 25, 200, 300. It's a great way of making sure that people don't stray too far from the group. And it actually came from an events group organizer who I thought would be, listen, we got safety cars, we've got this, we've got that, we don't need it. They were the first advocate for it. They said, we have safety cars, we've got insurance, we've got everything. And just in the previous month, we had someone who had a heart attack. The safety car didn't pick him up, and unfortunately the worst happened. But we had everything in place, and something like this could have saved that person's life because we would have been notified. They dropped out of range of the safety car, and we could have helped them. They didn't know until it was too late. It was great to think this is a real world problem we can go and fix.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And then Road Radar is just phenomenal. This is basically talking to the taxis, the lorries, the buses that are out there. Because you probably don't know that 47% of all incidents that are out there are totally avoidable and preventable. It's general lack of awareness. They didn't see you, they didn't know you were behind, the lorry driver didn't know you were on the left-hand side, all those sort of things. So I took this and I said, why don't I notify drivers? Yeah, drivers will need to have something running in their cabs. But that's where Road Radar came from. And we're working with the leading haulage firms across the UK to put Road Radar in. So that's a really cool one that I hope can save some lives.
Awesome, Kirk. Yeah, I mean, I can see just the features there straight away. You've got quite a rich set of feature sets. It's not just a single use kind of app. Then it's very much got a number of different functions and ways that it can be used. Yeah,
definitely. And I think then you start to think about, how can I further develop this? How can I add rewards and that sort of thing? So we actually partnered with the leading reward provider, Sweatcoin, which you get paid to go out and do the stuff you like. So you earn this digital currency, Sweatcoin, just for using Busby. So the next time you even walk to the shop or go walk the dog or whatever it is, just switch Busby on and you'll earn coin for it. And I think there's some really cool headphones and portable speakers and stuff that you can just buy just by using the app. So pretty cool. But yeah, a lot there. Multi-activity. It won best app for road safety, Site from Cycling Weekly. It's been in the Times. It's been loads there. And honestly, it's been a massive journey. But I just say to anyone, I was there as an architect thinking, how can I use the knowledge I've acquired from working on all these projects and stuff to do something that I would be really passionate about? And that was the answer for me, is to go and apply it to this scenario that I'd had with my friend being injured, and a few years down the line, here we are. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
And obviously summing it up in 20 minutes or so, just chatting around it like this doesn't do the journey justice. But just that point, if nothing more, that, like you say, to start this off, you were tinkering at your desk with a soldering iron. And this is where you're at now, is just a phenomenal. I mean, congratulations, Kirk. I think it's probably fair to say it's, undoubtedly it's taken, blood, sweat and tears. I don't doubt it. And, But like you say, that passion is probably, I'm guessing, has been the main driving factor for you to kind of stick with this and keep it going to get this to this stage.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is that if you pick something you're passionate about, then it's not a job.
Sure.
You know, it's something that even when you're at the lowest of lows and it seems like you're staring at the bottom of the mountain up and thinking, oh my, how am I going to make this? I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do this. When I started, I didn't know how to code at all. Now I can create mobile apps across the board. And it's just take that first step and you'll surprise yourself every day. Just don't expect to boil the ocean on day one. Start with something small.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, is it worth us? I mean, are you okay to dip into some of the architecture behind Busby? So when you say that you're doing the mobile apps, what kind of platforms are you using? How are you scaling those across, both iOS and Android? And maybe we can dip into the architecture of the back end in terms of what cloud services you're using, if that's all right with you, Kirk, just at a high level.
Yeah. Of course. So I think what's important is when you're starting out and things, you've only got time is actually the most valuable thing that you're ever going to have, much more so than money. You can't get more time, and you've got to learn to use it quite wisely. So for me, it was a case of, right, how do I build an MVP that can go, I can go and show to an accelerator, to some investors, to a Shark Tank, whoever it is, and go and get validation and more than a PowerPoint, So for me, I picked a technology called React Native, which is JavaScript based or TypeScript based if you're into TypeScript. Basically, there's a reason it's the #1 language in the world. I think Python's the second, or they might be toggling between each other all the time, those two. And you'll get a lot of, I know anyone watching that's a .NET developer has just gone, oh, JavaScript. And it was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but listen, this is why I picked it, because I think it works well with the way my brain works in terms of how code is structured and how the syntax worked. But it meant I could write once, hit build, and it built on Android and iOS. So I didn't have to go and learn Java or Kotlin for Android. And I didn't have to go and learn Swift for iOS. And more importantly, forward thinking, I was thinking, well, if this takes off, I don't need to have an Android team and an Apple team. I've literally just got one development team who are focused on, let's create that feature, let's create that value. And the minute we hit build, it's out as fast as possible for everyone to benefit from without me having to stagger 2 teams and stuff. So it made me very agile. I then took that, and at the time, I think, actually, to be honest to them, to this day, if I had to call out anyone, it's the AWS Amplify team. They're phenomenal. They created such an awesome set of SDKs and getting started, and their dev advocacy is just phenomenal. And for somebody with zero knowledge to go to dangerous with code, I never call myself a programmer. I would not, I'm not. I'm enough to be dangerous and prove a concept and get something working, and then I hand it over to the proper developers to go clean up the stuff I do. But yeah, I'd say look for the time now is fantastic to go and do it. Azure now has good advocacy, has great development kits out there and stuff as well. But yeah, I'd say, in fact, Google as well. Their Firebase stuff is phenomenal. So now has never been a better time to go and try that $1 billion app that you've had at the back of your head, and you think, no one else has done this. I fully encourage any viewer, just go do it. It's not as hard as you think once you take the first step.
It is that. I think you bang on. I think, certainly, if I reflect on my own journey over the last year or so, going into more public learning, essentially. I've recently written a quick blog article about it, the benefits of it. But it is that. I completely agree. I think it's just phenomenal, the pace of change that we're faced with today, but equally, as you pointed out earlier, the accessibility to be able to do these MVP type, proof of concepts effectively, for little, in fact, zero costs a lot of the time, other than your own time and effort and energy and brain power, I guess. So, yeah, it's if nothing more, just that kind of inspiration for people that do have that seed of an idea. Look how far it can take you in terms of, just using your skills, building upon them, using all the great like you say, the great advocacy, the great learning materials that are out there across all three cloud providers, and have a go. Yeah, I mean, look, you'll be inspiring me next, Kirk. I'll be I'll be back tinkering soon, so stop it now.
You will be, definitely.
But
I'm after an IoT bell at the minute, so every sale we've got, we can press the button and it rings in several offices. That would be great.
Well, there we go. Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, it's just fantastic to see, and just the highlights and the overview that you're given there. You can see what a brilliant idea, and obviously, best of luck. I'm sure it's going to do swimmingly well. But it's just, I guess it's really exciting times for you at the moment, then, to see it actually transform in this way. So yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome it is awesome. Yeah.
No, well, obviously, I think from that point of view of Busby and looking at actually people using the skills that you got, building upon them, and actually making that kind of transition from tinkering into something that, look, it's a serious thing that Busby is actually fulfilling there. Like you said, it's a serious concept that, I've read your articles, you are saving lives with the app at them, and you have saved lives with the app. And it's, that's surely what tech is about. Yeah, it's doing this humanitarian thing. It's tech isn't always about that. Oh, look, I've just learned this next big thing. Aren't I clever? I've just gone and done something. Actually putting that meaningful application of tech in that way is just, I think, if there was that big list of checkboxes, you probably just checked them all, surely, haven't you, Kirk?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like do good, make sure test your knowledge, and yeah, it's been awesome.
So I mean, can we switch gears slightly then? I mean, from taking us through obviously how Busby came about and into conception and obviously into production now is where you are and building upon it. I mean, can we turn the table slightly and look at your kind of history with community? Because you are a Microsoft MVP and you're an AWS community builder as well. I mean, do you want to talk us through what, in your opinion, it takes to kind of hold those kind of statures and those accolades? And, we spoke about time earlier, and time is obviously of the essence for us all. I mean, what does that mean to you, and how do you manage all the fantastic things you're doing in the community at the moment? I mean, loads of questions rolled up into one there, to be honest, Kirk, but take your pick. How did you become an MVP and an AWS community builder? And, what kind of things can people expect to have to do if they want to kind of walk that same road?
So my first bit of advice to everyone is don't go chase the title. Like, I never went going, I want to be an MVP. I was aware what an MVP was, but I didn't go, right, in 12 months, I'm going to go be an MVP. I think get passionate about what you're doing. Start finding like-minded people who are at the user communities. They're all over the place. You can, as you well know, Cardiff, you've got Liverpool, you've got Manchester. I don't think you'll struggle to find a nearby community within at least an hour of pretty much anywhere in the UK, right? And if there isn't one, go and build one, because there's probably 10, 15 other like-minded people nearby that are all thinking the same thing, and just go and try it, because you won't fail. You can't fail from trying to build a community neither, but there's lots of them around. So, just jump on Meetup and stuff, go and find some like-minded individuals. So, if I talk about my local one, which is obviously the Northern Azure user group for Azure, how did I get started there? So, I knew some people from one of the customers I was working with at the time, who's financial services, and they said, hey, listen, we've got this group, why don't you come along? And I looked at the speaker lineup, I thought, this is great. I've always loved speaking as well. So I thought, right, I'm going to shut up and be quiet and listen to a few speakers first. And then just have a little ask and say, look, I've done some work on this. Do you think this is useful? Because I'd love to share my knowledge with the community. And I think that's what makes the community so strong, is you don't realize that little project you've just spent 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 months on, you've probably gained an insight into something that somebody is looking for. And if you can share that with the community, then, it becomes that's what the community is all about, because, you're looking for past here's the documentation, here's the official stuff. You're really looking for, listen, does it work as advertised? Did you get caught out? Do you have any gotchas? That's the information. I'd say communities are fantastic for that. So once you get yourself into flow, I'd say the first probably thing I'd say is just blog. It's ironic that writing your thoughts, and don't be scared to hit publish. Just, if it's a 2-minute article, brilliant, go and publish it. Because what I found is 5 years, 6 years down the line, I'll go, how do I do that thing with Azure? And I'll type it in, and the Google result is my blooming post on how to do it 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know what you mean. I mean,
So
I've
I've
heard that
searched
quite a
my
lot
own
of times,
things.
actually.
Yeah,
People get into blogging by doing exactly that. Just because one of the things I was always very mindful of as a consultant and architect over the years, the amount of customers, rightly or wrongly, we've all got our notes. It was Evernote, it was OneNote, it was
yeah,
Notepad, it was Word documents, full of stuff, full of scripts that you kind of tweaked and changed and put some notes and comments. And they're kind of lost to the ether. I'm sure I've got them on a backup somewhere, but I
yeah,
thought,
yeah,
the whole concept is it's a simple thing. Okay, notwithstanding removing customer information, of course,
of
but if
course,
you
yeah,
sanitize that information and put it into a blog, get because there's loads of great ways of doing blogs these days now. So get into the habit of, okay, absolutely, you don't want to you don't want to push customer information out to the public, to the world, of course, but blog about it. And it's just so funny, the number of people I've heard say exactly that same thing. When you're stuck, you do that one thing. Right, I did it a few years back. What did I do? You Google and your own name comes up. I've not had it yet. Clearly, none of my stuff is that important. But, the number of people that have said a similar thing is just funny, isn't it? And you think, why wasn't I doing this 10 years ago?
yeah,
Why has it taken? And for me, that's one of the key messages I always try and tell people. It's like, just do it. Because you
yeah,
realize the benefits as you go, don't you? You realize you're not chasing some dream, like you say, you're not chasing an accolade and you want to be, sort of, oh wow, well done, pat on the back, you deserve this. It's like, no, you're doing it for your own benefit almost, and it
yeah,
helps others. Like you say, if they're googling that for that one little bit of insight that you may have done or blogged about, then all of a sudden there it is, and people reach out to you, I guess, from that point. Yeah, they'll reach out and thank you, I guess. And have you had much
yeah.
experience in those terms, Kirk?
Yeah, of course. Like I've always typically got quite a few messages on either LinkedIn or Twitter. Hey, I read this. How did you do that? Sort of things. And that's fantastic for me. Is just to be able to, sometimes help people I've never met before on the other side of the world, who read something and gone, really found that useful, or and it just makes you feel great because you're like, do you know what? Yeah, I went and solved something and helped someone. And to be honest, I probably solved it because I got stuck and someone else had written something on, you know, one of the forums where everyone's code is broken and then somebody magically fixes it and you're like, oh, there's a solution. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there's all sorts of things like that. And I'd certainly a keen advocate of saying that you just give as much as you can give. You're not going to be able to do community every single day or anything like that. Try and like make yourself accessible, but don't burn out.
yeah.
Because there's a lot in the industry where you can put unnecessary pressure on yourself. Just enjoy what you're doing, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. You know what I mean? And just do you, because you'll surprise yourself. A lot of people don't get started because they think I'm not like that person. Well, that's the whole reason you should get started,
Mm.
because there will be people that are really interested in what you're doing. Trust me.
And it's great advice, isn't it? And I've heard that several times as well. And I guess I reflect on it because I'm probably one of the newbies into the community. If I'm being honest, I've not. I think I'm time served, so to speak, as a technical person, but it's always been behind closed doors. And for years, I just didn't get it. I didn't know. I didn't understand what this thing community was all about. And I think it only took about a month and a half, 2 months into me starting to blog a little bit more, reaching out and speaking to people across social media a little bit more. And then it was like that light bulb moment. Oh, right. Okay. Actually, I get it now. You start to
Yeah,
meet like-minded people. Look, me and you having this chat now, this wouldn't have been on the cards, I'm sure, if neither of us had bothered doing that kind of work. So it just leads you to being able to kind of chat with really interesting, clever, intelligent, fascinating people that are doing some great things across the industry that you happen to be working in. So, it helps you build your knowledge up as well, is what I found, certainly, having those different viewpoints. So, yeah, and like you say, being yourself, because, yeah, no, everybody's got their own view on it. Everybody's got their own sort of take on a particular theme. So, if you think somebody has done that thing time and time again, that's great. But have you done it? And have you given your opinion or your insights into it? And that's, like you just say, that's probably the best thing to get started on, I guess.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. And do you know what? It's great to also just go test yourself as well, because, um, yeah, like you say, there are different opinions, there are different ways of doing things. I mean, there's a running joke in the industry that the more senior you get, the more, a senior architect, what's the difference between a senior architect and a junior architect? Well, the senior architect, the answer is always, it depends, right? and it's weird because the more senior you get, the more you answer, oh, it depends. What you trying, and there is that running joke of there's a lot of different ways to do it. So just because you've heard there's one way of doing something doesn't mean that's the only right way. There's an anti-pattern. There's a lot of different ways of trying it. So don't be scared to just get stuck in, use your free credits, all that sort of stuff. It's easy to go try and find the 100 million ways of not to do it, because that knowledge is just as valuable as knowing how to do it.
I think sometimes people are too afraid to fail, aren't they? Certainly there was a time where I was that person where it was like, I've got to make sure it's perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been as maverick as the next person in my day job over the years, as I'm sure we've all been at times, but we don't talk about those stories too often, I guess. But I mean, for me, to be honest, it's about talking about those stories, because sometimes I think, the view of the world can, to some people, I guess, be so pristine and perfect, and everything, you look to people and you think everybody knows everything they're talking about. And look, we know that's not the case. We are all learning as much as the person that is fresh into the industry is learning. So I think it's just, for me, it's been more around, I think part of it may be ego, to some people, where you don't want to be seen not to know something. Whereas that, I think that whole taboo needs to be kind of shot down in flames, because look, it's okay not to know something. I think the important thing is to kind of have that aptitude to work out how you know that thing, and whether that's being passionate, whether it's being, keep some kind of regime, like you say, spending an hour or 2 hours a week or whatever it may be that suits your own timescales to learn something new and push yourself outside of that comfort zone, I guess. And I presume that's, Busby was that for you then? You had the passion, and Busby took you on that journey then for your own kind of learnings, I guess, Kirk, yeah.
It was absolutely that. And it's just, I'd say to anyone, like, learning the stuff, so a lot of people won't carry on with their learning and will get stuck or maybe hit a plateau because you're learning for the sake of learning. Like, I've seen a lot of people just learn for an exam, and that's okay in itself, but there's a lot of people that pass the exams and then I see them on a project and it's like totally different world. The exam is one world versus actually going and doing it in real life is very different. To me, I'd say, like, I haven't, this isn't me saying don't do the exams, actually no, I need to go and do my exams. I'm saying don't let that be a blocker, because even if you look at, I think most of my exams have actually expired, but I've got the real world experience. So it's like, the difference is there. So I'd say go and challenge yourself, try it out, get it in front of people, present it as a session. A chat can be as small as 15 minutes to a 2-hour session in a community. They're all like-minded individuals. No one's going to be laughing at you or anything. They just want to see what you're up to. We're all really cool people that are just there to educate one another, to learn, to laugh, and fingers crossed we can get back to seeing people back in a room together where you get that vibe and you get that 10 minutes with the presenter after to ask your stupid question. But there's no such thing as a stupid question. You just go ask it, and don't worry about trying to be the smartest person in the room. You're never going to be the smartest person in the room. That's what I always think. Don't bother trying to be, because that's when you stop listening. And if you stop listening, you stop learning.
No, that's superb advice, and I've certainly seen characters like that in my time, as I'm sure we all have. And you just want to say it is really, community. It's, to all intents and purposes, it's about, almost kind of just like you say, be you, get in there, get involved, give things back. Yes, take from other people, speak to people, and it's just all those good things. But the one thing I always say is always keep it bleeding positive, because I think, there's certainly across social media, it's just such an easy place, isn't it, to kind of shoot somebody down if you, like you say. And that's a great way of framing it. I think if you you stop listening when you think that you're clever, you're the cleverest person in the room, and you see quite a lot of that across social media. And it's like, really, So yeah, I mean, I always say to people, whatever the situation, whatever it may be, the capabilities of everybody is different. Just keep it all positive. It's all about supporting each other and helping each other up, like you say, educating each other as you go. But
Yeah,
no, that's
and
awesome, Kirk. Yeah,
I'd also say to everyone here, just remember the tech industry is quite small. Your reputation will precede you, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
one good deed will come back in 3 years' time when you go for a job interview at the next place, and they'll be, oh, I remember you. You helped me out with it. It's just amazing to know how small, not just like the Northwest or where I'm talking about, just the tech industry globally. You get to know people and you'll see them sprout up in different companies and different positions, and you're like, oh wow, yeah, we worked together 5-7 years ago, sort of thing. It's just amazing, amazing. So yeah, your good deeds and everything will go, be well placed. And I think the community is getting much better at embracing the positivity, but very quickly shooting down the negativity as well. And
yeah.
those people that have anything negative to say, generally, I'd say just not worth your while. Don't even think about it, because most of it's jealousy.
Yeah, well, that's it. I always say mute and block is your friend
Oh yeah,
whenever you see those kind of people. But no, I mean,
exactly.
obviously, yeah, I mean, we won't go run off down that road because it is a negative road, isn't it, at the end of the day? But
Yep.
Kirk, we've talked architecture, the fantastic journey you've had with Busby. We've talked around community now, where you are, what you've been up to. Let's change tracks for the next, for the last 5 minutes of this episode then. Where are we going? What is the point of all this tech? Why are we all learning this stuff? What's the next big thing from your point of view, Kirk, over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the biggest next tech thing that's scaring everyone right now, and it's only just reared its head really, but it's been there for a while, is the emergence of like no code solutions, more AI assisted technologies, things like that. So you look at, let's take a great case that's got a lot of visibility right now and has split the world in two. GitHub Copilot, for example. For anybody that doesn't know what GitHub Copilot is, imagine writing code. Like your job is, you are so specialist at writing the code that gives you a red button that does an action, or a blue button that does your action, and sort of thing. And this is what you've done for your career. That's great, but now I've got a different mentality of, well, as a business, that doesn't really add any value to me. And Copilot, what happens is it makes coding and platform creation more accessible than ever before by doing the heavy lifting for you by using machine learning assisted technology. So I can type, give me a blue button that increments are counted by 1, hit enter, and it gives me the best practice code. Done. It's great. And if you ever, there's I think it's Fireship. They do some great videos on YouTube about it, but there's a 2-minute video there that's awesome that explains it. But it's split the world, because this is why the next big thing now is there's those that are, let's embrace the technology, let's roll with it. That means that's all sorted. I don't need to spend 80% of my time working on buttons anymore. And then there's the other side of the world that's like, but my world is buttons. It's like, yeah, but just you have to change, right? Because this is not new to any industry. It's not new to technology. It's like, before robots made cars, people made all the usual stuff. It just happens. And I think the easiest way of explaining it for me is, you shouldn't really be scared of no code or AI. It's not coming to steal your job. That's like saying to a mathematician, a calculator is here to steal your job. No, the value you have is, how to, what you should be doing with the calculator. There's algorithms, the sums, that a calculator in the wrong hands is very dangerous. It's not going to do the right things. It's not going to put you out of a job. So it's the same with things like the AI assisted technology and no code. I think you still have to know what you want as a end product. You still have to know, how that fits together as a user flow and everything else. And that's where your value is. So for me, the next big thing I'm going to say is going to be obviously machine learning and assisted technologies that help businesses create value faster.
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree with you, to be honest, Kirk. I think, yeah, some of the things I've been looking at, like, obviously tinkering around in the world of IoT very quickly. The story at the moment is obviously AI at the edge, running things on edge devices, so that you're kind of keeping that processing quite close to the the source, I guess, and in whatever you're doing, and you don't want to stream it to the cloud. But I think certainly my learnings over the last few months, dipping into the AI, the world of AI, and looking a little bit of ML, it is a phenomenal technology. It is really phenomenal. But the most important thing is all of a sudden, these cloud providers have made it that much more accessible to us all. So it's no longer do you sit there and somebody talks about machine learning and you just have this blank canvas in your mind thinking, yep, that means nothing. You can literally go into these cloud platforms now, and fire up some, demo test environments, like you say, and lots of the times there's free tiers in order to get started with some of this technology, and use the Microsoft Learn or use AWS learning modules to kind of go through some of these startup, concepts and scenarios that all of a sudden that blank canvas turns into, right, I can actually now visualize how I could use this technology for myself. And I think that's the point, isn't it? I think, just the accessibility to everything now is accelerated, not just how much we can do, but how quickly we can do things. Is that your kind of view on it as well, Kirk?
Yeah, absolutely. It's money time wise, it's got shorter. You can go and try these things. The accessibility is fantastic, and there's generally like a lot of quick start stuff. So, I think start with the why. What is it you want to go and solve? Why do you want to go and do it? Are you passionate about it? And then just go give it a go. Because now more than ever, and it's only hopefully going to get easier and easier and easier. But this journey with Busby has been several years. And I think if I was starting again today, if I had the knowledge of what I did, I think technically, it wouldn't take me as long as it did. But I think there's other bits around technology. As a technologist, you purely focus on technology quite a lot. There's other bits and pieces you have to think about as well if you want to turn it into, the next, hopefully next big thing if you want to go down that route. But it's more accessible than ever. There's some great knowledge out there, great SDKs, and you can get started very, very quickly. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Kirk, it's been a really fun chat. Really, not the insights you've given to me, let alone the people that watch this video, has been fantastic. So, I mean, are there any other parting words of wisdom you want to drop in now before we close off this chat?
To be honest, I've probably gone through absolutely everything.
I'm going to say there's just one more. Go on, Kirk. Throw one more in
well
there.
Done. Yeah, well done for persevering. You're obviously very patient. Just like I say, I'd close it by saying the community is phenomenal. You will not do yourself wrong by joining a community. Meeting like-minded individuals, being able to have the banter, the laughs, hopefully soon back to the pizzas and the drinks and everything else, and have some fun, because what you're doing can change the world. It's a lot more than just technology. Just go meet those like-minded individuals, go network, go share your ideas, test them, and have some fun. That's my part in words of wisdom.
I like that as the tagline there. What you're doing, you can change the world. I think that's a very apt tagline, and it kind of resonates exactly with where you're going with Busby, I think, Kirk. So awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Kirk. It's been a pleasure. Huge luck, all the success with Busby, which I'm sure it will be. And thanks for joining me.
It's brilliant. Well, thanks everyone. Cheers, Johnny.
Yep. Speak to you soon. Thanks, Kirk.
Thanks a lot.